It's a week off, and it's still break time, everybody, because my kids are on break, and so if my kids are on break, then I'm on break. I feel like everyone fell a little bit on break this week. So if you're here for the first time, my name is CJ Reynolds. This is our show, Sunday Night Teacher Talk, where we come together as educators, as would-be educators, meaning folks that are like still working it out. They're still trying to get through college or still getting into student teaching, and folks that are just trying to figure it out, even though they've been in the game for 30 years. It's a little bit of a different situation now. So if you can hear too much ambient noise around me, I just want to call this out in the beginning, especially if you're listening to this on the podcast version. So this is available anywhere that you listen to podcasts as well. The windows are open, and my loud neighbors in the backyard. There's a lot of things going on around here, right? City life. So I apologize, but it's spring here in the Northeast, which means it's either like 87 degrees and humid like yesterday, or it's like 40 degrees and it's raining and possible snow. It's a mystery. We live in a mystery. So with that, wife, it was nice to have a week off last week.
It really was.
Now we're back here doing this with you.
Yeah. But I also miss being off too. When we're off, I'm always like, oh, we should be doing Sunday Night Teacher Talk.
Yeah. It feels like you've been doing it long enough that you're just
it's part of our rhythm.
Yeah, we should be doing this. We should be doing this right now. So I'm going to start by reading a question that I got in a DM. But I got to put my glasses on because I'm at an age now where we went out to dinner the other night, and the bartender was like, do you know what drink you want? Like, kind of like came back for the second time. I was like, I am of an age where I need readers to see what the hell's on the menu, because I'm doing this thing instead. So, actually, hold on. We're going to get to Josh's question in a second. But for anyone that doesn't know, today is Chris Carson, one of the OGs on here, his 40th wedding anniversary. Chris Carson's been married than a lot of you have, even longer than you've been alive. And so we just want to say happy birthday, happy anniversary to Chris Carson's wife, Terry, and my friend Chris Carson. So she always goes, he's not your friend. So yeah, I hope that you guys have a really great day. I hope that there's some fun going on down there in the packed. Carson has I think he has 75 people living in his house right now or something like that. And a dog. I think it is.
I like packed houses. I think they're fun.
Me too. All right, so let's hit up Josh's question. Josh hit me up on Instagram. If you have a question, you can just put it in the question section on whatever platform you're on. If you write question next to it or Q, it just helps us identify it faster. So when the not so secret wife.
There's lots of chatting that happens sidebar in the comment section. There's a great community that shows up every week. If you ever want to join in, you can do that live. But so to help find the questions, if you can put a Q in front of your question, that just helps me to find it amongst all the chatter.
And anyone that does a super chat, and if you don't know what that is, it doesn't even matter. But if you do a super chat, it bumps your question to the top because we just appreciate it. So Josh is asking, wasn't sure if this is a good question for Sunday Night Teacher Talk or not. I think it is. But said, I have a student this year that I've had a really difficult time getting through to. She's shown zero interest in building relationships with me or being at school in general. She's consistently either in the ISS or OSS, which is in-school suspension or out-of-school suspension for the new folks. And has been or maybe if you're not in the U.S., either way. I don't know. I feel like I need to clarify that, but and it has been a huge behavioral problem all year. I really feel like I left everything out on the table for building a relationship with her, but I can't find anything that works. Honestly, I feel like I can't do anything else, and that really bums me out. Advice. I would say, Josh, that this is a perfect question for Sunday Night Teacher Talk, and let's kick it off with this level of heaviness. Not every student is there for you to be the one for. And so, and also think back to when you were younger. So, not every person that ever gave me a piece of advice was someone I felt like I had to listen to or that I wanted to listen to. And even though that person may have really wanted me to pick up that advice, it doesn't mean I was going to do it. 1, 2, trying to build relationships with people. Like some kids, it's like you want to build a relationship, But you have to think about what is their trauma, right? Have they been burned by relationships before? Did someone say they really, really, really wanted to be a part of their lives and then they disappeared, right? We don't always know what someone's story is, but we do know that people are often fighting battles that we know nothing about. So it could be deeper than what you're even able or capable to do in school. Not all kids want. It might be something about us, right? I had a guy one time I worked with, Stu. He's black man, early 40s. I don't know. He's tricky. He's tricky one. He's one of those guys. I'm not really sure how old he is, but I just assume he's in his 40s. So I'm just going to keep going with that, Stu. Sorry. So Stu was saying one time that, like, we were talking to some folks and they were saying, hey, it's easier for some people to get along with students than others. And they kind of like, we're looking at Stu. Stu's like a very hip guy. He's he dresses cool. He acts cool. He does get along with a lot of students, but he was saying, you know, one of the things he never saw coming, I'm going to talk about why I'm talking about this in a second, is because he's like, as a black man who is working at a school teaching all black young men, he goes, there are kids sometimes who their parents are, they're dating someone and they either don't like that person from the jump, or mom and that person broke up and now they feel kind of left out or hurt by that person. He goes, and even when you speak, even when you talk to a kid, sometimes that can remind them of that hurt. Like, there's something about you that's touching that thing in them. He goes, just because of what I look like, just because of who I am, it's tapping into that side of them. So I just think that the reason I bring that up is sometimes there's other things that kids have been through that we might remind them of, and that might actually push them away from us. So what do we do with that? This comes always back to teaching as a communal activity, right? It is showing up for a kid. It's never giving up, but not giving more than I feel like is needed. And I don't want to pour water into a cup that has no bottom either, right? If it's not going to try and hold on to this, it's like not really worth it. But here's the thing, and because even that language, it's not worth it. We are showing up for kids forever and for always, because you just don't know when a kid is going to flip, or a kid might change, or a kid might find a moment of truth, a person that they connect with, and they're going to shift. Now, if I go from really, really wanting something for you and then feeling hurt, feeling aggravated at you, feeling angry with kids because they don't want to connect, all of these are like emotions I felt when students don't want to connect with me. That's hard when a kid might come back around later, because now I feel like sorry, I ate something and it's like stuck in my throat. You feel like a level of apathy. So you don't want that to happen. Sorry, excuse me. I'm really having a hard time here.
Sometimes it happens.
This is why they always have those coffee cups on. Look, now I look like I'm crying. So anyway, it's always showing up because you don't know when that kid's going to come back around, or if they might come back around. You also want to think of it as planting seeds, that we're not out here just trying to like grow plants all day long. Some seeds, kids need to be like kind of worn down with love sometimes. So maybe this is a student that when they're no longer in your class, you become a safe place for them to come and talk to. I've had this happen with students many, many times over the years, where they didn't want to talk to me freshman year. They didn't want anything to do with me freshman year. And then over time, they kind of like slowly come back to see where you are, what you're doing, what you're about, that kind of a thing. And then that relationship kicks off from there. And, you know, the other thing is trying to find someone else in the building that might be able to help them, right? And pouring fuel on that fire, right? Finding that teacher, that person in the building that connects with that student, that could have a lot to do with it also. And look, as good, I will tell you this, like, not trying to be a narcissist, but like, I am very good at building relationships with students very, very quickly. Even kids that are difficult, it takes, I have it down. Like, I have what I do down. There are still kids that you can't get through to. And sometimes it would aggravate me that I would try really hard. And then my co-teacher, Kayla, would like, just like build a relationship with a kid. And I'm like, dude, seriously? She's like, oh my gosh, you won't leave me alone. Are you kidding me right now? Like, you're driving me nuts, because I've been trying, but mine wasn't the energy that they needed. They need someone else's kind of energy or their take or their vibe or whatever. So I think that's why we're doing this together. It's one of the many reasons we're doing this together. So sorry, that was a long answer, but.
All right, Steph Shooker Buddy is up first, asking, second, I guess. How do you combat the lingering student funk that comes with springtime? It's funny because you would think that with springtime, we always feel like energized by spring, but in the like school calendar year, springtime is like,
it goes either way.
Can feel really done.
It goes either way because kids will either feel done with the year or the nice weather like makes kids go to 10 all of a sudden. They're just like come in and they're just like energized and wound up and stuff like that. So I think if you're dealing with the funkiness, it's, one, Steph, I think I was talking to my daughter about this yesterday because my daughter has been feeling a little bit funky yesterday and today because she knows that school goes back tomorrow, that today's the last day of spring break. Right. So, and I said, one of the things is you're always going to feel that. Like I've always felt it. Go ahead.
Wait. Now I'm confused because Maisha in the comments asked Steph if she was asking about if it was body odor related, and then Steph said yes. So now I'm not sure what type of funk we're talking about.
Oh, we're talking about stank.
Are we talking about both type of funk? Which funk?
Right. So one, I'm gonna finish my first answer first. Kids just being funky, like feel like having their energy is funky.
Mentally.
I think that it's coming, and you do things to combat it. What can you do to sprinkle into your life? And I have a video coming out about this, so I won't talk too much about it. I'm just waiting for it to get the sponsor to sign off on it. But it's like, is there a trip you could take, right? Like, what happened to schools taking trips? Like, my kids don't go on any trips. And so, well, my daughter does, and my son's homeschooled. But so it's like, what kind of trips can you do? What kind of person can you come in and speak to your class? How many be able to switch stuff up and do something kids are gonna like? To get that energy with the smell factor. Look, I taught 9th grade boys for a long time. One, Glade plugins. I put one in the front of the classroom, one in the back of the classroom, make sure that the smells match. And I change them seasonally. So like this time of year, I'd have something like lavender, billowing through, or fresh laundry is a scent that I liked.
Lavender is good because it's calming.
Yeah. And then it's reminding kids of the importance of deodorant. Like, hey, y'all, let me just remind you. Here's a thing I wish I knew when I was your age, is that your underarms are going to start sweating, kids. It's called puberty. And puberty, one of the downfalls of puberty is you're going to stink if you don't do something about it. So make sure that you put a little spray, a little roll on there. If you don't have deodorant, if you can't afford it, I wouldn't say if you can't afford it. If you don't have it, come see me. I'll just hook it up. And this is something I would do. And it doesn't be for everyone. Sometimes the nurse will give it away or something like that too. But it's like just public service announcement, right? We're going to talk about this. And because I don't think not all kids come from that family where this is impressed upon them, right? But it's definitely something you're going to get made fun of for, and it can be scarring. So that's one of the things I think.
I love it. In the comment section, they're saying baby wipes to have kids freshen up, or like having a spray on kind of version that you can leave for people to use. Yeah, the wipes are probably key. I imagine that even if you don't have deodorant to offer students, that wipes will just help.
No, our kids all the time. I like when I'm gonna put my son on blast real quick. I like when my man doesn't put deodorant on because we're going to the gym, and he's like, "I'm just gonna get sweaty and go home and take a shower." I'm like, "But I have to work out next to you." So do dad a kindness and put deodorant on.
I'm like, it's not for you. It's for the rest of us around. Oh gosh,
my man.
Man, Maisha, thank you for clarifying for us because we were going the wrong way.
I'm going to drop another thing in here real quick. I'm going to drop in the chat. Real quick, if this is still on here. Yeah, here it is. All right. So I'm putting in the chat right now a GoFundMe. And I don't typically do this, but this is a close one to me. My buddy,
can you pop it up on the screen?
Chivy Brooks. Can I put my own on there? Oh, I just put that out. I don't know what I just did. There it is. My buddy, Chivy Brooks, and his wife lost their 16-year-old son. Was away for spring break in Florida. If you follow him on Instagram, many of you might. It's at Call Me Shivy. He's a high school teacher down in the Atlanta area. His 16-year-old son, Bryce, went on a trip with some friends for spring break. Some kids were caught in a current. The story, as I understand it, some kids were caught in a current. Bryce tried to save them, ended up getting caught in the, I think he saved multiple kids, ended up getting caught in the current himself. And then a family friend jumped in, tried to save him, and they both drowned on this spring break trip. So there is a GoFundMe that has been organized by Hope and Wade King from Get Your Teach On, and they are trying to, I think they organize it. If I'm giving credit to someone that doesn't,
I believe they did,
but they're the ones that sent me the email. They're trying to raise money to help with things like funeral costs, and I mean all that's going to come from losing a 16-year-old son out of nowhere. So I wanted to say, of course, our prayers we're thinking about them when we pray, and wanted to throw this GoFundMe up there. If that's something that you have the capacity to do, if it's something you feel like a call in your heart to do, please consider. But they are, they're good people, man.
If you're a praying person or good vibes, whatever you want to put out in the world, I'm sure that the Brooks family could use it at this point.
Yeah. So I wanted to make sure that I mentioned that this evening as well.
All right.
Cool.
Ready to
All
move
right,
on to
let's
another
kick it.
question? John Fox is up asking, admin gave from the weekend before Easter break to do report cards, and they're due Tuesday. Usually they give us 2 full weeks and weekends. Is it bad that I didn't do them over break?
No.
Feels unfair, and I needed to not think about school over break.
No, it's a break. John, it's like, I mean, if you're a union, I believe it's like in your contract, but I've never worked for a union school. I've only ever worked for charter schools. So, but I just know what my boundaries are. So what I would do going in this week is try to lessen your teaching load and so you can get more grading done. Don't play the games with kids with like, can I get more grades in or anything like that? Just like, no. And I typically, here's a move too. I stop taking work from students, and they know this. It's not a surprise. It's every kid knows it exactly when I'm going to do it. I build about a 2 to 3 week buffer in before my grades are stop for the marking period, right? So kids it's 2 weeks, not 3 weeks. But I stop grades about 2 weeks before for a couple of reasons. One, it allows me to get grades finished. 2, it allows students that are sick or that have been out by something that they can't control. It allows them to get work in as well. So I'm not like having to give them an incomplete or something like that. It allows me to reach out to parents. So if I do have a couple of students that have extenuating circumstances, I want to make sure that I give them extra work to kind of bring their grade up. And that's a whole nother conversation about what I think is extenuating circumstances. But like, it's creating that opportunity for students to bolster their grade. You want to be able to make sure that there's time to do that as well and not feel like so overwhelmed at the same time. So that's how I roll it out. So I would try and find what are some like student driven tasks that could happen this week in class. So that's giving you extra time, and then not feeling like everything, if you're doing this, not everything this week that you're grading has to go into your grade book. Put it in next marking period.
All right. Elise is up next asking, Earth Day this week. Any simple activities I can easily roll out to the school?
So depending on the maturity level of your students, one of the things I love, I learned from my maybe distant cousin, I don't know, Richard Reynolds, wrote a book called Guerrilla Gardening that I was super into. This idea of like gardening spaces and places in your neighborhood that are not yours. You just go out at night under cover of darkness and start gardening stuff. And this is a weird thing I used to engage in all the time. So they do a thing that's called creating seed bombs. And what you do is take little bits of like natural clay. You can just get regular clay from I don't know, any craft store is going to have it, like Joanne Fabric, Michael's. AC Moore's not a thing anymore, right?
Well, he's not around here. It's not.
Yeah, so don't go there. And so what you do is you get it, you flatten them out into like little tiny circles about this big. Where are we at? About this big. You get wild seed mix, or you can get sunflower, some kind of seed that's going to live no matter what. Like they don't have to be super cared for. Then put those in the middle of the thing with a little bit of compost, or, I'm not real Miracle Grow person. I'm more of an organic person, but like putting some kind of organic in the middle, then rolling it into a ball. Right. And once it dries, it's like this little clay ball. And so I would make them with my students, and we would just chuck them places like over fences where it's just, you're in the city. They tore down a building 10 years ago. It's just sitting there, and like, life finds a way. So you're just chucking these into places where they wouldn't normally be. Then what happens is when it rains, it breaks down the clay, the soil and the fertilizer touch the ground, and then you grow flowers in places that you normally wouldn't be able to grow flowers. And we've always had a really good time with that. But like I said, you gotta make sure we're doing the right kids, and not like chucking seed balls at one another or at school buses or something like that. Not that my students ever would do something like that, but I'm just saying, you might.
Oh no, we don't have any questions. I mean,
it's fine. It's off week, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We weren't here last week. We're here. People are like trying to be on break. I feel like they're just like, you know what, Reynolds, I'll catch you next week.
Right. Well, it's the last day before a lot of people go back to school tomorrow.
And I feel like that a little bit too. It's like, even coming on today, I'm excited to be on and see everyone. But it's in the back of my mind, like Marley's going back to school tomorrow. Are her clothes ready? Do we have lunch stuff for her? Do we like?
Yeah, and so imagine everybody that even is listening.
And I've been way off my rhythm. I mean, I haven't woken up before the sun all week. My habit tracker is a nightmare right now. So
that's Nassim. Nassim is asking, how was your break?
Break was great, man. We did a lot of stuff together. We did a lot of antique hunting. My wife took the kids to go see the Mario Brothers movie. My friend, Miss Cho, got her doctorate, did her final dissertation. So I zoomed in for that from Harvard, which was super fun. We did an escape room, which we beat. And my kids and wife had never done an escape room before. I'd only done two different occasions. I took students, and it was awesome. So fun, man.
It was so fun. I was really nervous to do an escape room because that's like not usually my jam, especially like timed things. It puts me under pressure, and then I don't know, my mind draws blank.
Yeah,
I'm not good for those. But we did it, and it was so fun.
I highly recommend people try an escape room with their students.
To be honest, they're ridiculously overpriced.
They're super expensive.
So expensive for no reason.
But a lot of times schools, so one, I mean, I never had students pay for any class trips. I don't think so. I always thought it was a good idea, and I wanted to try, but then it becomes a limiting factor. That's another story. But I always like, it's a great class trip. And if the school can pay for it, and you can get group rates a lot of times, or because they're students, sometimes the price is a little bit lower, but or look out for a Groupon or something like that. It's just way worth it. It's problem solving in action. It is working together.
Oh yeah. Group. It was total. I would do it again, even with the price, but I wish I could do more of them. I would do more of them like more often if it wasn't so expensive.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I wish we just like Scooby-Doo characters when we went, but next time we will. I had a great spring break, man. Just a lot of like relaxing and
just family time and together.
And now I feel ready. Like tomorrow morning to get back up early again and start going for it. It's like, let's go. I'm excited about it.
All right. We do have some questions
now. Go ahead.
Well, Nassim's asking, what are your summer plans? Do we have any summer plans? We have summer plans to work, Nassim. Yeah. With the things that we're building now, we're hoping that will roll out at some point in July and August. Woohoo.
One of the big things we're working on will come. It will. Watch this. It will come out in July.
I just thought in my head, I'm like, I can't even believe I said that because I never say those things out loud.
No, it will come out in July. Then it's speaking, trying to get as much speaking as possible. So if your school is doing professional development, that you're looking for a keynote, they are looking for someone to lead training this summer with new teachers, with your district, whatever, they can hit us up, go right to realrapwithreynolds.com. They can find all the information there, or just email us at realrapwithreynolds@gmail.com. But it's doing a lot of that, but it's really trying to capitalize on that stuff. And then doing something like doing family time too.
We're going to plan a vacation and do something. I don't know where that is yet, but like somewhere local, like nothing too crazy, but just some time with family. The
beauty of the summer too is that if I get up at 4:30 or 5 and our kids don't wake up till 9, that's a lot of time to do work. Yeah. And then once the kids wake up, it's like, all right, let's do something.
And we live so close to the beach that we do a lot of day trips to the beach. We hope to do more this summer for sure.
So cool.
All right. John Lopez is up asking, what are your wishes for new teachers in the last quarter of the academic year?
John, I hope that I think teachers have a tendency to take on more of a loss than is their fault. Now look, sometimes classes aren't doing well and it is your fault, right? I'm not gonna say it's not. I have definitely been there. I've seen classes, I've run classes where I'm like, dude, I'm part of the problem here. However, there are issues and situations and schools and states of schools that it wasn't you. Or this is more of an issue. I met a woman today at the antique store that had like 22 kids in a class. Her situation was like unwinnable.
She had 22 kids with like a lot of kids with like that were super under grade level where they should be, and she had a lot of special education students that needed help, so she needed a para.
She needed an extra set of hands in that classroom, and
the school
she was told no. So it's like it's hard to not take that stuff on for you too. And the other thing is, look, John, spring is one of the greatest seasons, right? It's the flowers only last so long. This weather only lasts so long. Up here in the Northeast, it's going to be 95 every day in no time. And so really taking that in and letting it rejuvenate you, remembering how much of a positive effect vitamin D has on your system. So just getting outside for 20 minutes a day, getting direct sunlight on your skin. It's like, enjoy that. That was my hope. This was always my favorite time of the year. I know a lot of teachers hated it, but this was a time of the year that, man, if you put in the work during the year, classroom management just got easier. Like you knew who was the problem. You knew who was not. You just knew your classes, and it just allowed a flow to happen. And it's just always made me love this time of the school year.
That's an interesting outlook. I don't think I ever heard you say that.
Really?
Yeah. All right.
I was thinking it.
Naseem is up asking any summer recommendation places.
Gosh, it depends what you really like.
Lopez in the comments told him to go to Portugal.
Yeah, Lopez all over the place. If I could go anywhere, let's do this summer with my kids. My kids hate heat, so all right.
If it was just you and me, where would we go?
I would love to go. I love Puerto Rico.
I
think Puerto Rico is a quick flight. It's super beautiful. The people are incredible. The food's so good.
This is true.
There's
so many great things in Puerto Rico. You get history. You can get surfing. You get.
But with our kids, I've been thinking of going towards Maine. Still nice. Still summer.
I think they would love that.
So something like that would be fun too. Yeah.
All right, Steph, you're up next. And she's asking, since I'm just coming back, I now have 6 weeks to plan and put up a new theater production. The original musical planned will not work. Ideas? I was thinking original takes on fairy tales.
Gosh, that's such a short amount of time. Steph, I'm wondering.
That's a lot of work, Steph.
So if you do original takes on fairy tales, could you do one time we did we did a couple plays like this. We generally did original plays at our school. There was very few things that were we did Macbeth one time, but even that was dystopian future of Macbeth. We did a play called Philadelphia, and it focused around things like gun violence in Philadelphia and a number of other hot button topics in it. And it was a bunch of little, is it a vignette? Is that what I'm thinking of? Is that the word? Little chunks of a play that would happen. And that was super fun because nothing was too long. We've actually done a couple of plays like that where it's like these little, 10-minute chunks. We did one around Greek gods and goddesses one year where there was like, we built like this Family Feud board, which was insane. I had this giant Family Feud board in my living room that I built with the little things that turned around and it made the dinging sound and all that stuff. So we made like one scene was, the gods and goddesses doing Family Feud. Another one was them doing sock puppets. It was absurd. So it was all these little pieces. And that was way more fun. And it was far more doable and it was easy. It was great because you could get kids to play like 2 roles if a kid was really good, but you weren't stuck with having someone that wasn't really a go-getter having to do something when they didn't have enough time to learn the lines. I think it solved a whole lot of problems and it was really, really fun.
Yeah, that's what Maisha said too. She said she called it fractured fairy tales.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Same idea. Okay, up next is Andrea. Andrea is as sweet as Coco?
Yeah.
Sweet as Coco,
Andre, as sweet as Coco?
Okay. All right, that's what we're going with. Yeah, Andre, as sweet as Coco, asking, how do you feel about teachers wearing jeans to work other than Fridays?
Man, let me tell you something. This is a great question. I have this long list, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it, but things I think teachers should be able to do. Here's the thing. My students were required to wear uniforms to school. And sometimes I'm with uniforms, sometimes I'm not with uniforms. My students, I was with it because I think, one of the things we talked to our students about is that most kids have enough clothes for one dress down day, but not everyone has clothes for 2 dress down days. So everyone has enough nice stuff to at least pull off one day showing up like that. But so how do we do that? How do we deal with that? How do we help so in our school, it was like, how do we help our brothers out? And that was, we're all going to agree to wear a uniform so that we can level that particular part of the playing field. Right. And you still saw, right, it's still sometimes fairly obvious to see like, well, who can afford a haircut, who has nice shoes, whose clothes look clean, whose clothes look dirty. And so there's still a piece of that there, but it was the gesture of, you don't like, other people might not have it. I'm willing to do this for my community. And that's how we're going to move forward. And I love that. Because clothes can oftentimes they become like this status symbol thing. Now, because of that, I wore a tie every single day. Like I never dressed down unless my students were dressing down because I wanted to be the example and I wanted to be there with you. Now, I wasn't going to wear a school uniform because I didn't want to because first of all, I didn't really like them that much. I'm going to tell you that. But I would wear something very similar oftentimes to a school uniform. So, but that was like me standing in solidarity with my students doing this thing also. Now, if I worked at a school where the kids could wear whatever they want, I just think, who cares what teachers are wearing, right? Like when you look at the state of the world, I think that dressing up and looking professional, right, has changed a lot, right? You look at like all these entrepreneurs on the internet or on TV or people that are writing books or running podcasts and like whether it's Gary Vaynerchuk or Mark Zuckerberg, like no one's dressing up to go to work anymore. It's a different world. And so I don't see an issue with that because I think this vision of what we think is professional is tied to something that is old and I don't think always has value. Now, if you're at a school where that is different, right? You need to set yourself apart to look the professional part. That I hate air quotes. I'm going to do it anyway. That professional part, then perhaps that there is value in that. But I think wear what you want. I mean, as long as you're not rolling in like pajama pants.
I think especially elementary teachers like that they have like those teachers are wearing skirts and they're like on the floor. I don't know, as a mom, when I had little kids and kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth, like I was on the floor. I was playing with my kids. Yep. I was doing those things, running around. That's a good point. I needed jeans or leggings or whatever, like not dresses and skirts.
Yeah. Or if you're teaching a certain class that like lends itself to being a little dirtier, right? Like if you're doing science outside, right. If you're going Becky Schnexer route, like if y'all are teaching science and you don't know who Becky Schnexer is, look it up. Expedition Science is the name of her book. So you're doing science, you're doing experiments. Like when I would walk around the school with that Odyssey project where I would have the students follow me where I'm jumping over railings and stuff like that. I'm like sweating to death, wearing a tie, a sweater, I got dress pants on. I smell like soup by the end of the day. It's a whole mess.
You got the whole funk going on that Stephanie Shook was talking about.
I got that kid funk. And they're like, well, Reynolds is doing the funk. Yeah.
All right. Miss L is up next asking, I am struggling to keep motivated with someone else sitting what I consider lackluster content. Advice to renew enthusiasm and sprinkle magic on a dry syllabus.
So I think this is one of those questions I wish I had a little bit more information from. Without knowing too much else, and I hope this works, is it's being the example, right? It's showing up and doing the things that are going to make it come alive, even though you might get shade for it. Like someone's going to look at you and think like, oh, what are you better than everyone else? All the other crap that people might think. And I'll tell you what, Elle, I don't, even if someone doesn't say something to me, I don't suspect that anyone's saying anything about me. I just go and do my thing. And if people don't like it, then that's different. Like if they say it to me, then we can have a conversation. If someone has a problem with what I'm doing, we can have a conversation. But if no one says anything, I don't think twice about it. I just am like, I just pretend that everyone loves it or that they don't have a problem with it. But I think how do we change school culture is always by doing something. And then if anyone gives you any love for it, it's maybe helping someone else out with their class, helping them figure out how to sprinkle magic so that what you're doing becomes contagious. You're empowering people and you're creating these opportunities in multiple different classes for students all over the school and for teachers to be fully who they're called to be and not just like some, watered down version because we're afraid of what everyone else is going to think. I think teaching has more to do with confidence in that way also than anything else. It's not just your pedagogy. It's not what you know about your subject matter. It is, do you have the courage to do the thing that is needed to teach your class off? And so I think go for it and be the example of what that is.
Absolutely. All right. Mary is next asking, I have a period with some really difficult behavior kids. They are playing me. I have split them up, but they keep finding ways to get up and visit each other and have been throwing art supplies around the room. Their behavior just continues to get worse. And we just have 5 weeks of school left. It's my first year and I keep dreading this period. Any tips?
Sure. So Mary, I think, I do. I'm trying to surmise this down. I would say, All right. So I would start with, there's only 5 weeks left. You have to start with the mindset that, what you're doing, what you're going to try is going to be practice. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but you'll at least go out in a blaze of glory, knowing that you tried your best, and then trying some of those skills, practicing some of that confidence so that it's going to tie into next year. Because here's the thing about kids that all kids, right? Whether they're a pain in the butt, whether they're really smart, whether they love school, whether they're silent and don't say anything, you're going to have those kids again next year. They're just going to have a different face and a different name, but those same behaviors will come back time and time again. So it's the more you practice, the more you see what works, the more you see what doesn't work is going to allow you the ability to deal with these same behaviors in the future. So with regards to this class, I would let those students know, look, here's what's happened. This is what I don't even think I'd go into like, this is what I think is happening, or this is what I think I see happening. It is going forward. Here's the gig, right? These are the parameters. This is where you're supposed to be sitting. You're not supposed to be going over to this table. There's no reason to ever go over to that table. So you will not go over to that table. If they do, hold them accountable. You could call home. You could talk to someone in the office or talk to like someone that's on your school's climate team. You could give a kid a detention. You could send an email home. But it's whatever you're saying you're about, it's really, really sticking to those things. It's really, really doing what you say you're going to do. And then realizing that you don't have to do all of it. So it's even talking to, so if I was in a situation where I had 5 weeks left in school and I'm really, really like, I'm feeling thin, I'm feeling worn out. I would have a plan in place for, all right, here are these same students. This is the situation. I'm going to have them sitting separated. The goal is to have them not interact with one another. But then also, what's going to happen if this doesn't go right? Right. So I need to have that plan in place so that I'm not stuck like a deer in headlights and not sure what to do. So I would have the head of our culture and climate team, Mr. Meeks. There we go. City living. That's dirt bikes doing wheelies down the main road here. So it is talking to my guy, Mr. Meeks, and letting him know who I'm dealing with. He's going to have a conversation with them. I'm going to have a conversation with them. If they don't do what is necessary, they're going to be put out of class to talk with Mr. Meeks. And so what you're trying to do is get kids to find the rhythm. I'm not just trying to kick kids out. I'm not just trying to get kids in trouble. But we have to remember also that when these kids are taking so much mind share, it's stopping us from being able to teach everyone else that's in class as well. And so that's part of what I would do. I would also consider calling home and saying, hey, look, these are some of the behaviors I've been seeing lately. I would probably email this because it's going to give parents a longer time to be able to process. These are some of the behaviors that I've been seeing, and I'm wondering, what has worked before to help your student to be engaged in class. Seeing what parents say to that, but now the parents are already in the know, and you didn't put their kid on blast and just write home and tell them they were in trouble. You looked for something to help you. So now it's like you and the parent working together to help their student. And then, gosh, there's so many things here, but it's holding kids to a level of accountability that might surprise them, and helping kids to understand. And maybe this is through a conversation as well, that like, this isn't about you. I have a video coming out to talk about this as well, where this idea of like, when kids say like, all I did was get out of my seat and go and ask them for a pencil. All I did was like, I have a detention because all I did was throw a paper ball across the room, whatever it is. Right. And it's not all you did was this. It's you are interrupting learning for other students. And so that's the bigger picture. You're not finding success while you're doing that. And you're certainly interrupting the success that other people could be finding because of the behaviors that you are like exhibiting in class. I think one last thing, Mary, too, is like making sure that in these last parts of the year, are we doing things that have the optimal chance of being engaging for students? They might not be engaging for all students. Some kids might still hate doing the work, being asked to do anything. Like, it still might be there. But can I get the majority of my class on board with something? Makes those students like they become far more of an outlier. And it is obvious to everyone that 75, 80, 85% of the class was locked in. And then like you 5 jokers are just like doing this. It makes it so much more obvious. And then making like dealing with that becomes better too, because you can see exactly what's going on in those situations too.
All right. Patty Cakes is asking, which financial literacy topic do you think interests high school students most? Taxes, investments, credit, and credit scores?
I think depending on what kids want to do, it's a combination of both. I think most students want to do, I'll say this, at my school, like most of my students didn't have a bank account. Students didn't understand taxes at all. They didn't understand the value of like saving money and compound interest and these sorts of things. And some of that, look, is because there's a lot of violence in the neighborhood in which I was teaching, right? Like in West Philly, like I've seen a lot of kids that like have lost friends. We've lost a lot of kids, man. And so it gives you the sense that like, you don't even know if tomorrow's not promised. So like, why would I save anything and not just go ham today and do it all? And so, but I think it's helping kids to realize that, look, here's one of the things I talk to my students about. Rich people that are, if you want to be rich folks are not interested in always, like the really rich are not interested in looking rich. And they don't work for money. They make money work for them. So it's when you get money, what can you do to that with that money to make more money, not to just spend it so you can look cool? How can you use that money to make more money?
That's what I was going to say. For high school students, I think it's about like, nobody wants to really learn about taxes or how to balance a checkbook or any of that. Although I think all that's very important. I think you're asking what would interest them. And I think it's simple. How to make your money make money for you. How to make your money make money.
So
everybody wants to learn that trick.
and so kids might feel like they can't do that. But with the way the internet roll, like for you to be able to, like, you can be anybody and have an Etsy store. You can be anybody and have an Instagram platform or a YouTube channel. Like there's no, like if you have internet and a device that you can record with, you can have stuff on all that. Or Gary Vaynerchuk, I remember telling students years ago, he started talking about like going on Craigslist, finding stuff that's for free in their free section, and then taking it home, cleaning it up, maybe taking a nicer picture and then putting it on Facebook Marketplace and selling it there. And so, or putting it on Etsy and selling it there. And so I think empowering students of like, this is what you could actually do, right? So then I would run my kids through like, oh man, what if you had a YouTube channel? It was like, all we do is like trash pick on Sunday nights. And
yeah, but that's how to make money. I'm talking about after you make money, it's the investment part.
But I think it's that
how do you,
I think it's that first piece, right? It's like, it's getting kids interested in the making money, why we would make money, what can we do with that money, and then how can we make more money? And when that becomes the game, oh, that's fun.
Right.
Man.
It's like,
and
what do you do with your money
that.
once you get it? It's like, you can just spend it all if you want. You could just keep it in a bank account if you want. But what does that do? And what's the interest on that versus all the other safer investment options that you can make?
And I see that even just in our daughter, right? From going to like the thrift store, we'll go to Goodwill. She'll find something and she looks it up on eBay to see what it's selling for. And she's like, oh, can we have an eBay store and I can sell this thing? And it's like, yeah. But then you're going to learn all those other things through that. And I think, look, the power of credit scores, damn it. That was a conversation every year with kids that were seniors. It's like next year when you go to college, they're going to promise, they're going to give you a Frisbee or a pizza or whatever to try and get you to get a credit
card with $500 for you. That's how
and you're
going to
feel like you are balling until you
get
blow
the bill.
through that. Yeah. So don't do it. Stay away from credit cards in college, kids.
Absolutely. Interesting fact, Fiona Edwards mentioned, she said, we no longer have checkbooks and checking accounts in New Zealand.
Really?
Interesting.
Man, I got stuck behind a lady that busted out a check the other day, and I felt like I was going to be there my whole life. It's funny things we don't teach kids.
Yeah.
Right?
There's a lot of it that we don't teach kids, at least in school.
Yeah.
Okay. Dana is up next asking, any book recommendations for 16-year-old non-native English speakers who feel angry and confused about life? Something uplifting but deep to read over the summer. Cheers. Man, who is... I don't know how good this is for a 16-year-old. I like the idea of soundtracks by what's his name?
John Acuff.
Yeah, but they came out with I couldn't find it actually. I need you to do some digging and find it for me. I thought they were coming out with a teen version. Like him and his daughters were writing that same sort of book, but geared towards teens, which I thought was brilliant because it helps them how to, I mean, look, we all know as adults, like, controlling your mind and that chatter in your mind is like,
I was going to say that because folks might not know.
Yeah. So it's about being able to control that chatter in your mind, right? When we don't think healthy thoughts, what do we do with that? And how can we shift it? And they have one for adults. I don't know if a 16-year-old could read it because I haven't reid his version.
But if you're not a
native
reader,
right.
It's like, I would consider also, Dana, because I'm like I'm being asked this, like I'm on point
you blank.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm
exactly what I said.
But I think not being afraid to get something that's in their native language for them to read, right? So like, even though you might want them to learn English, it's like giving them something that's gonna if we can touch the soul, like the soul has to come before the mind, right? The spirit has to come before the mind. And so like if we're not in that place where we even believe in ourselves or think that all this is worth anything, then who cares what you teach someone? There's like, it's worthless.
I think that's why I thought of soundtracks, because to me it's like working on the part where he's like feeling angry and confused. Like,
but I'm wondering if I think sometimes a book like Perks of Being a Wallflower or something like that, where you're gonna, it's the narrative, you're reading about someone going through it, and it's not so clinical. Could be it. But I would say, Dana, I mean, if you have the capacity, I'm wondering if anyone has a book that they could recommend that would be a good fit, and then you could kind of look them up. Otherwise, I think you could also go in our Facebook group, Real Rap with Reynolds Teacher Talk, ask for books in there. I asked for books for my daughter recently, and I got a slew of them. Or going to a bookstore. If you think about it, not many people, there's not a ton of people that go to bookstores anymore. So to go to a bookstore and ask someone like, hey, this is my situation, this is their jam. This is what they love to do. And so that's a good place to find answers too. But then if you could buy that book and have it be brand new and give it to a kid, the unbelievable joy on a kid's face when they are given something that they didn't expect, they didn't ask for, that's brand new, is something that's really special. Like, especially a book that's like, man, I have bought a ton of books for kids that never got a new book before. And it's just like to crack that spine for the first time. Oh man, it's magical.
I want to go back to Miss L because she put in a couple more follow-up things about her class.
Sure.
She said it's really boring and she has to do some other people's stuff.
Let me say this real quick to Dana. You can leave Miss L up there.
Okay.
Dana, the fact that you're even doing this, I just want to reaffirm the fact that you're doing it is like such a beautiful and wonderful thing. And what a great thing for that student. Like, what a blessing it is for them to have you to be even looking out for something that's going to help them along this next season of their lives is really wonderful. And so for all of you doing the same thing, I just think that's incredible.
All right. So Miss L is saying, to clarify, it's not in the US, and another teacher sets the content and topics, worksheets, class notes, and tests, and she just has to teach it. It's very tedious because I'm used to setting my own content and syllabus. There's a third one on here. Hold on.
Yeah.
I know it sounds easy, but for me, it's not creative at all. And I have to give them the set content. Terrible. Yeah. Jesus.
Font type.
Yeah. It's terrible, but how to sprinkle magic. So I think you could do that. You have to take someone else's content, because I think that's what a lot of teachers, even in the States, are stuck with as well.
Yeah.
It's really similar. And maybe it's not someone that they know personally in their building that's writing the content, but they just give these curriculums that you're supposed to follow word for word, and everything's set for you. And so a lot of teachers struggle with that. But I think it's about like taking that boring lesson and then figuring your own way to sprinkle magic on it. Yeah.
I think it's like covering a song. Like if you're in a band and what's your band's version of this song? Like, I'm not going to play it exactly note for note. I need to put my own stuff on it, my own sauce on here. And so I would begin by finding little ways, right? So if you're getting PowerPoints with really terrible font on them, how can you make it look better? Maybe you are changing some of the pictures and stuff like that. It's not changing the content, right? It's just changing like how it's shown, right? You could take a piece of chicken and flap it down on a plate, or you could set it up nicely and you could have some, garnish on there and whatever, all the other crap that they put on plates to make it look fancy. It's how you're serving that thing up too, changes what you're doing. And it's, where are we in the school? How are we doing this? Is it like, are we like, I've given lessons, and I know that other teachers have done the same thing, but it's like my kids are all laying on the floor when I'm giving out this information. My kids are on the front steps of the school. My kids are doing the same pictures, but with sidewalk chalk on the side of the building instead of on a piece of paper. That I'm giving the same notes, but my students are doing it in a way that is different than what everyone else is doing it. It's the same stuff. We're reading the same book. We're getting through the same thing. I'm just trying to make it come alive. So it's looking for look at this thing that I've been given, whether it's a test, whether it's a quiz, whether it's note taking, and what would this look like if it was fun? What would this look like if it was cool? What would this look like if it was I know people hate this idea of like edutainment, but like what would it look like if this is like a little bit of like there was like some showmanship behind this? And because it's like when you are, it should be an authentic expression, I think, also of who you are and who your students are. So it's not just us doing what's best. Like it's just I know you said it could be very easy, and there might be a teacher that would be thrilled to be able to just walk in someone else's shoes. But if that's not for you, and you know that's not what's lighting you up, then it's certainly not going to light up your students, right? School is not a place to download information into kids' heads. It is an opportunity for us to get to know our students, to then take what we get to know about students, know what's special about us, know what we have to bring. And then it is the intersection of those two things that makes a classroom come to life. So what are things, pictures, examples, ideas that you could pull from what your students are interested in as well that is going to make that lesson come alive? But I would start doing that in small increments. So it's like, could I just replace all the pictures in a PowerPoint? Could I stop using whatever terrible font is being used and use something that's maybe even a little bit more legible, have less words on here? But like it's having that courage to try and do those small tweaks, because those are going to lead to giant peaks in the end.
All right. This is timely for this season.
Go for it.
Ryan's up next asking, when did you know it was time to move on from teaching? This was my 12th year of teaching, and each year is getting harder to find the excitement to teach.
So, Ryan, I think if you think about it, for me, there were a number of things, right? It was the 5 or 6 principals in 3 years. It was the loss of all of my friends from my school. It was the new every new administration had a new big idea that they were going to roll out. Everyone went with it. And then it was like, bro, all right. No, this is number 6 coming in now. Like, what's your new big idea that we're all going to have to do and change everything? And it's just frustrating. My call, though, wasn't just with any of that stuff. My call was this intuitive feeling of knowing like I was called to do something different. So I didn't leave education. That's never been my hope at all. What I want is to empower educators. My goal was actually to see, like, I came through all that stuff. I came through everything that I've been through so far, right? None of it got me. And how can I help others to do that as well? That was my pull to something else. Now you have to think, what is your pull, right? So after 12 years, if teaching is not something that lights you up anymore, then maybe it is time to change something. But I will say this, for those of you that are looking to not leave education, and maybe this is you're asking too, Ryan, is that, I've been with my wife for, 27, 26 years, something like that, since senior year of high school. And there have been times where like things are great. There have been times when things are more difficult. When
thanks for not saying horrible.
But no,
I'm just teasing you. I agree.
Things have been really tough sometimes, but like things can kind of get boring, right? It's like we're eating at the same place. Life kind of goes through a rhythm, but it feels like less of an exciting rhythm and more of like a we're just keeping it going. I think for me, those are always opportunities for experiments to figure out, what can I do? So like, I can't put education. My students were never in control of my joy. My admin was never in control of my joy. I wasn't happy. I wasn't only happy at work because I had good admin, because I had good students. It makes it better. It's a whole hell of a lot easier to be happy at work if you have strong administration that cares about you, to have students that are showing up and wanting to do the stuff and are excited about life and class and all that stuff. But if they weren't, it was, what am I going to do for me? So Ryan, I think that's a you question of what else can you do, right? Like, what else brings you joy? What other ways can fill you up so that I'm not putting all the onus on what I'm doing? And so what are those opportunities in school where it's like, I'm going to spice this up? Like, what would this look like? What kind of teacher do I want to be? And then sitting down and thinking about that. Like, how does that teacher move through school? Are they talking to more people? Are they doing more things for the school as a collective? Are they surprising people with joy? Are they being sillier? Are they being less stressed? Are they excited when they walk in the building? And so how do I start fostering some of those feelings, one, outside of school, so that I can be a better person walking into school? And then two, it is reverse engineering that. So what would that look like? How do I start acting like the person I want to be? And this is, I just think, good advice in anything you're doing in your life, right? Whether you are working, whether it is a relationship with your spouse or your boyfriend, girlfriend, or, you know, whatever. It is, what would the best version of myself, the version of myself I'd be excited to be, how would they handle things? What would they be doing in their life? And then just start doing some of those things. And I think what we find is that it doesn't take a million changes to change anyone, right? It's like, it's not the huge diet and thinking about it over a 2-year period, but like, yo, if you ever exercise and eat well for 2 weeks, you realize that, like, man, you feel a hell of a lot better all of a sudden. So it's just trying to do those small peaks and then getting better. Like those tiny risks are going to lead to you being able to make bigger risks and bigger risks and bigger risks that are all going to benefit all the people around you.
Heather in the comments said that to recapture some of her teaching joy, she had to back off a little bit from other stuff within the school. Yeah. And I think that's great advice too. Like, sometimes you need to back off, not just from things that are in your school, but maybe in your life. If you're stretched too thin, like, you always have to like recalibrate.
I'll tell you what was a really fun thing I did last year. I skateboarded a lot in high school and before. And so last year, my daughter got into skateboarding, and she was like, Dad, I don't have none of her friends skateboarding. So she was like, would you get a skateboard? And I thought, first of all, I'm in my 40s and I haven't skateboarded in a minute. Like, I'm not doing that. But then I ended up, like, the more I thought about it, I'm like, why not? So I went out, I bought an old school Santa Cruz skateboard in the mall. And my daughter and I went to skate parks all last summer. And it was so fun because it was like a skateboard that, like, there's a skateboard I've always wanted, and I still have not been able to find it. It's a Mark Gonzalez. It was his first signature board from like 1985. And man, my neighbor Jeff Cole had it, and he was the coolest kid I ever grew up next to. I ever knew as a kid, and Jeff Cole had it. So I've always, like, anytime I've seen that board, I'm like, damn, that's a sweet board. But it was the Santa Cruz board that I always thought was cool, and having, like, tapping into that, right? It's the thing I always wanted as a kid. I just went out and bought it. And then having it and like putting in my trunk, and then my daughter and I like busting out to these skate parks all summer and like riding all over the place and finding parking lots and tennis courts and stuff. It just was so damn fun to do this, even though I wasn't doing tricks or anything. It was just cruising around, but it was finding this thing that you used to do that brought you so much joy, and then trying it again and seeing if that still did it. So what was the thing when you were a kid that you could maybe do again? What was the thing that brought younger you joy? Maybe that's buy a Lego set. What if you're a 40-year-old and you bought a Lego set and you put that thing together and you were like, man, this is really fun.
There's some really awesome Lego sets for adults to put together nowadays.
What if it was going to more movies? What if it was start a podcast with your buddies about those movies that you went to see? Like, what else could you do that would be unpredictable, silly, or fun that is going to fill you up with joy, that allows you to then show up to school where, like, this isn't the only thing going on in my life. It's incredibly important, but I'm filling up elsewhere. Yes.
Tracy asked a great question to Ryan in the comments saying, like, is it the school environment or is it the, like, field itself? And he responded saying, he's trying to figure that out, but the environment isn't the best, but it's not the worst. I think it's the field and the direction it's heading. So I think your advice is perfect, because if it's more the field and the direction, I'm not so sure one person can do anything about the state of education, right? Yeah. We all know it's terrible, but I think you can. Your advice is solid, because it's like, no, filling yourself up and balancing more of you during this time where education is in such turmoil helps you to manage still being able to do the job.
You don't take it as personal either. It's not like
so much other joy.
It doesn't
things
all
in life
ride
that
on
bring
this.
You joy, right?
Yeah, and then the beauty of that is that everyone else benefits from your joy.
Yep.
And maybe do that with your coworkers and stuff, but you have to have boundaries. I think when hanging with coworkers, it's having boundaries where we're not just going to sit here and like complain about school the whole time. It's let's just go out and have fun. So go do an escape room with your coworkers, and or go out to dinner or whatever. But I just think
it's the soul stuff. It's like anything that's going to fill your soul up, touch your spirit. You gotta start there first before you can do any of the other work.
And I mean, there were times I remember one of the last times I got in trouble last year was we were doing, it was a really grueling week. The kids did really well in their vocab test. So, no, actually they did well on whatever was happening. We were doing our final vocab review, and one of the songs was that we use as a review was through the way that we review was a Little Mermaid song. And so for whatever reason, I bust out like the bubble maker, and we had the music on. I got that light that Brody bought me to plug into my computer and place party lights at the same time. And the kids were all like singing. And I remember they did so well in their vocab tests. And one of the things we were talking about was when you can lower the level of stress for students and not make it seem like this doesn't matter, but it's not the end of the world.
Right.
So let's go into this with a sense of like, we're just singing, we're having fun. If you don't do well, I want you to do the best that you can. You can retake it next Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday before school, after school, during lunch. And then that's a big deal too. So it's like creating those opportunities. But I remember I got in trouble because they did not think it was academic. But the thing was, the students did better on the test. So I didn't give a credit. Like proved my point.
Yeah.
So yeah. But
all right.
We good? All right, cool. Look, gang, the last thing, if you're still on here and you are interested, I'm gonna put this up here one more time. This is my buddy Shivy. Again, his family is going through this horrific loss of a 16-year-old son. And man, that one, it was just so out of nowhere. There's a GoFundMe that is raising money for Shivy and his family. There's a lot that comes with this, right? And so it's helping to ease the financial burden on someone else. It's something I almost never talk about. So when I talk about this, it's important, but the Brooks family is really, they're a special group in my heart. And so I just am hoping that, like, if you feel it on your heart, if you feel moved to do this, you can go right to this link that I put up on the page here and go and help them out in a way that you think that you can. And so that is it for this week. We will be back next week, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it'll be after a week of being back in it for the week. So if tonight's ending your spring break, have a great night. Have a chill night. We're going to go eat some food and watch Mandalorian, and Marley and I are going to go do nature art instead of going to do work right now. So, anything else, wife?
Nope. Have a great week, everybody.
Cool. All right, gang. We'll see you next week. Peace.